Welcome to Coding Your Career. Today we're going to learn just the basics of Git, something that every programmer needs to know. Alright, so this video is for people who have no idea what GitHub or Git actually are. So if you're looking for like really advanced branching strategies, this is not the video for you. Alright, so GitHub, Git, what is it? So the idea basically is that when we program, we want to have something to help us kind of record what we program. So kind of like a record or a journal or a diary, right? So like on March 12th, I wrote this code. On March 13th, I deleted this code. On March 15th, I deleted more code because it was awful, but then I added some. Okay, we need kind of something to kind of like take snapshots of our code as we work through it. And we also need something to help us, well, work as a team. Git is one of those things that you're going to have to learn because when you work at a company, you're going to be working on a team of people. And Git is pretty much the most used tool that teams use to collaborate with one another. So learning it is an absolute must. So you do need to install Git on your computer. Okay, so you can go to git-scm.com if you're on Windows and you can install it. They've got different ways to install it through Linux, through Windows, etc. But it is something that you need to install on your machine. All right, without it, you will not be able to use Git. Now, Git itself is the thing that is helping you to do the diary of your code. GitHub, which is something you also may have heard of, is a website. Okay, it's in the cloud, and it essentially, when we start having our code, when we write our code, we want other people to be able to see it. We also want to be able to collaborate with other people on the internet. So GitHub is our place to do that. So Git is the thing that's helping us do our journal. On March 15th, I wrote this code. On March 16th, I deleted this code. And then the website we use to sort of share our code with others and to collaborate on code with others is github.com. So hopefully you get the difference between the two of them. They are very like interwoven. So what you should work on is if you don't have GitHub installed already, you can check pretty easily. If you're on Windows, you can open up a command prompt, and then to open up the command prompt, you type cmd into the run and you'll see this command prompt come up. If we're on Mac, it'll be terminal. What we're going to do is we're going to type git 2 dashes version. All right, git 2 dashes version, then we're going to hit enter. All right, my Git version is 2.46.0. All right, and so your version might be different, which is perfectly fine. If you did not get this message, if you typed in git-version and then you got like Git is not a recognized command, that is your way of knowing that you do not have Git installed on your computer, and you will need to go to this website, git-scm.com, to go and install Git. All right, so that's what your way of knowing. So again, we typed in git 2 dashes version into the command prompt, and that let us know, hey, like you have Git already installed in your computer. If you did not get a version number back when you put this command into the command prompt, then what that means is you don't have Git installed. And so in order to do this tutorial, you're going to need it. So take a moment and make sure you got Git installed. Once we get it installed, I'll kind of show you, well, how do we use Git? Before we get into the fun stuff like commands and all that good stuff, let's learn a little bit about how we actually use Git. Like what part of the computer do we actually use when we want to use Git? So here I have a command prompt open, and we already kind of used Git like a few seconds ago, right? We did our first command. First, I type in git for Git, then 2 hyphens version, then spit out my Git version. So this is a very basic way of using Git. You just type a command into the command prompt, you hit enter. The command will begin with git space and then something else, okay? And the something else is what we're going to be learning in this video. Now, the command prompt is not the only place where you can use Git. And this is where beginners get to like their heads explode because Git is such a fundamental thing that they basically made it so that you can use Git from a lot of different places. You might be familiar with this thing called Git Bash, which is something you probably installed when you installed Git. And Git Bash will look a little bit different from the command prompt. They're both kind of like black and white, although Git Bash is a little bit, is a little fancier. All right, it's got its insignia. But for the purposes of our tutorial, anything I teach you that we're doing today can be just as well done in Git Bash. It's not a big deal. So if you're wondering why do they have two different things, it's because programmers are persnickety and they like to have just the right tool for what they want. Now, if you're using a code editor, so for example, let's say that you do Java, right? You're a Java developer and you work with the thing called IntelliJ, all right? So this is IntelliJ. And again, if you don't do Java, at the very least, you know this is something that you use to write code with. In IntelliJ, we have the terminal. And again, there's a little insignia in the lower left. It's got this little like arrow thing. You click it, and then you'll notice at the bottom brings up the terminal. Okay, so the key thing to note here is that it does say Windows PowerShell, but you can use Git here as well. You can type in Git commands. So I can do Git to -, version like this, and you'll see that it gives you back the version for Git. So here we can also use it, and this is pretty convenient if you think about it. So the idea about having the Git window inside of the IDE is so that you don't have to like do Git here, then come back and code, then do Git here, come back and code. You can just do it in one place. So this is convenient. And then you can come back here and you can do Git version. And then you can do some more code. And then you can come back here. So see how this works? So this is convenient. So that way, if you need to use Git, you just use the bottom of the screen, and then you can come back up here to code. Now, other code editors have this as well. So for example, Visual Studio Code will have a terminal. So you go up to the terminal, and then you can have a command prompt or PowerShell or what have you. Visual Studio Code does not tell you how to live your life. You can have whatever kind you want. Again, command prompt is perfectly useful. If you have Visual Studio, there's actually a really cool thing where it actually will have, like, for example, Git changes and Git in a little window off to the side. But the point is still clear. Your IDE or your code editor will have some way in which you can use Git without having to switch back and forth between windows. So hopefully that's clear. Okay, now that it is, I'm going to be using IntelliJ for like showcasing how Git works. It doesn't matter if it's Java. It doesn't matter if it's HTML. It doesn't even matter if it's Ruby or whatever. Git does not care. So don't be taken in by the way things look. Just kind of learn the concepts as we go along. So even though I'll be using IntelliJ to kind of show you a little bit how Git works, don't worry about it. If you're a JavaScript person, if you're a Python person, it's all the same basic fundamentals. All right, before we begin, I am going to assume that you understand basic commands for the terminal, like, for example, change directory. All right, so if you need a refresher on those, there's plenty of resources on the internet to kind of let you know how to work those. But for right now, I'm going to just be in my folder called C/coding/Git. I just made this. You can have whatever kind of folder you want to have. Git does not care about it. So essentially, I have a folder on my machine, on my C drive, in a folder called coding with inside of another folder called Git. And I've got some files, and it's just code. You'll notice that typically with coding projects, you'll have lots of different folders with different files in them and all sorts of stuff. So that's just part of life with code, right? You want to write a piece of software, you're going to need lots of different files, each doing their own thing to give you Netflix and YouTube and all sorts of stuff. All right, so let's say I've got some code, all right? And I'm in my folder C/coding/Git. And, well, here's the first problem. I need to make what's called a repository. So basically, what I want to tell Git is, this isn't just like a regular old folder on my computer. I would like to essentially say, this is going to be a folder where I am going to keep a diary. Okay, I'm going to keep a diary of the changes to the files inside this folder. I'm going to repeat this. A Git repository, okay, a repository is a very highfalutin word, but what you can basically think of as this folder, specifically that I am in, I would like for Git to keep track of the changes. Git will watch the folder like a hawk. Any file in that folder, any file inside of another folder, Git will be checking that file to see if anything changed, or if anything was deleted or added or updated. It will keep track of it. Now, if it's not a Git repository, then Git doesn't care. Okay, so all the folders on your computer that have, like, you know, your family vacation photos and your Word documents, Git doesn't care about those. Okay, so Git doesn't know that they exist. Git does not care about them. We need to tell Git, hey, this is a folder I care about, and I would like for you to start tracking changes in it. So how do we do that? Typically, again, when we work with Git, the command is going to begin with GIT. So it's always going to be GIT space and then something. So your job is to memorize the something part, okay? So you know it begins with Git. Okay, that's just the way life is. It's going to begin with the word Git. There's going to be a space, and then there's going to be something else, the command. In this case, we're going to type Git status. Git status will let you know, okay, a lot of different things, but we're doing it to see, hey, the folder I'm in, c/coding/git, is this folder a GitHub repo? Is Git watching this folder for changes? And the answer is no. What you'll get is fatal, not a Git repository, or any of the parent directories, .git. Gobbledygook for a beginner, but what this really means is that, hey, Git is not watching this folder. This folder is just a regular folder that we don't care about. Okay, this folder is not being watched. Well, I would like for Git to watch this folder because I'm going to be doing some code. So I would like to initialize a repository. Git init, I-N-I-T. You're going to hit enter, and we'll say initialize empty Git repository in this folder. Now, a couple of things will happen. Okay, first off, what you're going to notice is that if you go to the folder in Windows or your Finder if you're in Macintosh, is that there's going to be a hidden .git folder that will be created. This wasn't there before. But Jonathan, I don't see a hidden folder. If you're in Windows, you can go to View, and there should be a Show Hidden Items option. All right, because again, certain folders they don't want regular people to mess with, so they make them hidden. So that way it's less likely for people to mistakenly delete things. But as developers, we can show hidden items because we know not to delete stuff. All right, this .git folder is important because it means, hey, Git's watching you. Okay, so Git is going to be watching all these different files in here, this POM file, whatever that is, this source folder. Git's going to be, they're on alert, right? They're all on blast. Okay, so as long as this .git folder exists in here, everything inside here is going to be tracked. So now I've already done git init, and you only ever have to do git init once. You only have to do it once. Once you do it, you don't need to do it again. Now if I type in git status, I'm going to get something completely different. Now we don't have to understand all of what this means just yet, but notice how I got, this is totally different. It says on branch master, no commits yet, nothing added to commit, yada yada. So what we've noticed is that now instead of saying, hey, this is not a Git repository, instead we've got this. Okay, that's because it's a repository now. And again, to reiterate, you only need to do git init once. Now, this hidden .git folder is important. What happens if I delete it? Let's see what happens. I'm going to just manually delete it. Goodbye. Now I'm going to come back to my C coding git folder. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in git status. And what do you think is going to happen? Will it show me the repo status, or will it give me that original error message? What do you think? It gave me the original error message because it's no longer a Git repo. All right. Why? Because we got rid of that hidden .git folder. That hidden .git folder is how you know you're dealing with a Git repo. To create that hidden .git folder, you're going to do git init. All right. And you'll notice once I did git init, there we go. You only need to do git init once. I know you're like, Jonathan, why are you repeating that so much? Because people will do it over and over and over and over again, and it only needs to be done once. All right. Also, be very, very careful where you type in git init. Make sure you know which folder you're in. If you're in your C drive, right, like you could accidentally turn your entire computer into a GitHub repository. So be very careful with git init. But this is our way of creating a repository. So now let's see how we can track changes, okay? Because cool, we made a repository, but like, what is Git doing for us? So, like you told me, John, this was a diary. This was a journal. How are we journaling our code? Well, you're about to find out. Remember, you only need to do git init once. You do not need to do it multiple times, and always make certain that you are sure of what folder you are in before you use git init. Git init is a very, very dangerous command if you do it in the wrong folder, because you could turn your entire hard drive into a Git repo. You have been warned. Alright, so basically what I wanted to make sure you understand is that there is more than one way to skin a cat, especially with Git. So everything I show you, there is probably another command, another way of doing it. But the idea is to get the basic concepts, all right? And then you can write down the commands possibly on an index card next to your desk. That way, over time, because again, you're going to be doing these commands so many times during the day, eventually you will just naturally memorize them. All right, now let's go back to that git status. This git status is a very handy command because it lets me know, is my current folder a Git repo? Branches, we're not going to do branches today, but when we do branching, it'll be very, very, very helpful. But it also lets us know these untracked files. Now you've got some red here, and again, you don't have to be a Java developer. You have no idea what .idea means. It doesn't even matter if you know what it means. What this basically means is that we have a Git repo, which is my folder, C coding Git, and I know that because I've got this hidden .git folder. But Git's like, listen, you want me to track files, right? You want me to see whether you change files. But I don't know which file you want me to look at. There's so many files in here. What do you want me to look at the POM XML? Do you want me to look at the main.java? What file do you want me to track? Because I'm not going to just track 100 gajillion files. You tell me, human. All right, so I want Git to track the changes in the file. So when this word track does kind of throw beginners off. Track just basically means follow, okay? It's going to follow your changes. So for example, my code looks like this right now. If I add some code, right, some new code, then basically what that means is I've changed my file. I've added some code, all right? I would like Git to track that change, to keep tabs on what I'm doing as I'm coding. What am I adding? What am I updating? What am I deleting? All right. If Git is not tracking the file, though, it doesn't care what you do to the file. Like, it does not care right now what I do to my POM XML. It does not care what I do to the inside the source folder. Does not care, okay? Because it's not tracking these files. How do I tell Git to track files? Now, we're going to do the easy way first, and I'm also going to show you how to do it individually. The command is add. Remember, all commands begin with Git, and then we're going to do add. Now, we need one more thing after the word add, so don't hit enter yet. If you just do git add by itself, you're going to get a hint. It's going to be like nothing specified, nothing added. So basically what Git is telling you is, well, what do you want me to add? We can tell Git to add or track a specific file, or we can tell Git to track everything inside the folder. Let's do everything, because that's typically what you're going to do when you get set up. So I'm going to say git add, and then how do I tell Git everything? Just track everything. If it's a folder, if it's a file, you track it. So there's two ways to do this. You could do dot, okay, so git add dot, that's going to be a thing you're going to hear a lot, or git -a. What's the difference, Jonathan? There is no difference. Okay, there's none whatsoever. I don't care if you use git add -a. I don't care if you use git add dot. It literally does not matter. Let's try it out. Git space add space dot. All right, cool. All right, it will give some warnings possibly. I don't really care. Now I'm going to do git status one more time. Let's see the difference. If you'll notice, the files will be green this time as opposed to red. Okay, if the file is green, Git is watching the file like a hawk. Okay, it is staring straight at the files like, okay, did you type something new? Did you delete something? What did you do? Okay, so Git is staring at this file. So for example, my main.java, which you see up top here, Git is totally aware this file exists, and any change to this file, Git will keep track of it. Same thing with the other files. All right, so they're green. That means they're being tracked. Now, you don't have to track all the files at once. You could do git add and then just the name of the specific file you want to track. That's up to you. Git add dot is something beginners are probably going to be doing for most of the time because, like I said, you're going to probably be just tracking everything at once. All right. Git is keeping track of my changes. Okay, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to commit my changes. What do you mean by commit? Just because Git's tracking them, right? We want to tell Git, hey, I'm typing, but hey, here is a thought. Well, Jonathan, what do you mean? Kind of think of it this way. Do you want Git to track just you typing the letter S? No, that's too small. What about system? That's too small. Basically, when you code, you're going to be like coding, and it's going to be a point. So like, this is what I want to do. Right? You're going to do some code, and then like your thought, the thought you were having is pretty much done with. Okay? I wanted to print something out to the screen after the user presses the left button. That's like a thought, right? That's like something you want to get done. Okay, cool. I've had a thought. All right, great. Here's where we're at. I may not be done with my program, but I've had a thought, and this is a good stopping point. I would like to commit this. I'd like to write in my journal that Jonathan on March 31st, okay, 8:13 Eastern Standard Time, made this change to the code, just like a diary. So how do we commit our change or make us say, here's my thought, let's make it official? Git, commit. Now here is the important part. Again, there are different ways to do this, and when you go online, you're going to read an article. It's going to say all sorts of things. My job is I want to tell you how to do things in the simplest manner possible. All right? So we're going to do -m, quotes, and let's just say I printed a new line, end quote. What the heck is this, Jonathan? This is a commit message, okay? I am saying I'm done with I did some coding and I'm done with my idea, all right? This is the general idea of what I wanted to do. -m tells Git, hey, I'm going to put a message, and this message is just something basically to say, what did I do? The commit messages are important for letting yourself and your coworkers know what you're working on. Okay, so for example, if I did a bunch of code, the commit message should tell other people what does the code do? What was the point of it being in the code base? Are there people who write lazy commit messages? There certainly are. But our commit messages should be describe what we did, but not be like a novel. Notice I printed a new line. That's good enough for right now. Now be very, very careful. You really want to make certain you remember to put the -m and then the message after it. If you don't, you will end up in Vim hell. All right, you will have a very difficult time getting out of that, and I will talk about that later in the video. But make sure you don't forget the -m and then the message. Let's hit enter. You'll have some gobbledygook, but what it basically means is that Git is now said, okay, cool, like these are your changes. If you do git status again, you'll notice that, oh look, we don't have all agree anymore. Okay, let's say now we're gonna do some more code. Here is some more code. I've been coding for hours, and oh my gosh, I want to stop. Okay, cool. So I did some more stuff. All right. Now I'm going to do this cycle all over again. All right. I'm going to track the file, and then I'm going to commit it. So if I do git status right now, you'll see that main.java, all right, is red. Okay. It's been modified. So we're going to do git add dot. Git commit -m, quote, added more print statements, because that's what I did. And then we're going to hit enter. All right. And so it says 1 file change, 3 insertions. All right. So you get status. All right. And you notice that there's nothing here. Okay. On branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. All right. So again, this is the journal aspect. So we're going to do some code. We're going to add the code with git add dot or git add -a. And then we're going to commit, okay? Git commit -m, and then some sort of message afterwards. There are other ways to do this. There are going to be things you're going to see on the internet. I'm trying to do the things in the simplest manner possible. All right, so now that we've done a couple commits, let's see like why we're doing these commits. Like what was the purpose of doing this, Jonathan? So I've been talking about Git being like a diary, and you're still like, Jonathan, what the heck does that even mean? We just did like git add dot and git commit. What? All right, so what I want you to do is type in git log. All right, so git log will look a little bit weird, but what you'll see is we'll say like commit and then some gobbledygook and then the author. So this is a commit. Remember the first commit we made? That was it. See, it's like a diary entry. Each commit has a big long gobbledygook string, which basically is the ID of the commit. Each commit is unique. It tells you who made the commit, so if the code is broken, you know who to yell at. And then at what time was the commit made. And then see how it has the commit statement, so you know this is why it's important to write a meaningful but not too long commit message so that people know what the heck this was all about. Here's my second commit. All right, see? And then we go more commits, more commits, more commits. All right, so each commit you do is basically like a journal entry. I did these things and I would like to save it. All right, cool. Here's who made the change. Here's when they made it. Here's what they did. And you can continue committing and committing as much as you'd like. All right, I'm just going to hit enter and enter until I see all of it. Typically with git log, it does get pretty big, so you may have to hit enter to kind of continue down. And then let's escape. Okay, we should be able to just quit. So I'm gonna hit Q. The letter Q is there to quit. All right, so I'm gonna do that again. So git log. And you'll notice that there's like this colon and it's like cursor at the bottom, so we're like not in the normal PowerShell command prompt. Okay, and so if you hit enter, you'll be able to go through your commits. Once you see end, you can just type the letter Q, and that will get you out of it, and you can go back to your regular command prompt. All right, now, if you're wondering to yourself, Jonathan, does that mean I can go to an old commit and change the way my code looks? Yes, you can. So we're going to type git checkout, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my commit message. Let's do my commit ID. Let's take this one. Now, if you do this with me, like if you're doing like yourself with a folder, on your own computer, your IDs are going to be totally different from mine. So don't take this and put it into your computer because it probably won't work. Okay, your ID is going to be something completely different. All right, I'm going to paste it. Git checkout and then the ID. All right, and then we'll say head is now here. See where all my code went? It's gone. Why? Because this is the way the code used to be. All right, so just like a diary, you can kind of go back in time and look at previous entries and see how they were. That means that we can look at our code basically at different points of when we were working on it. All right, so if I want to go to a different spot, so let's go here. I'm going to get this commit ID right here. I'm going to do git checkout and then paste that ID. And you'll notice that my code updated. So each commit is like a snapshot of your code at different points in time. And so this is great for dev teams because let's say someone makes a mistake, puts in a bug inside of production, and oh my God, well, no problem. We can just basically roll the tape back, okay, and go back to a previous safe state. We can pick and choose whose code goes in the code base and which order it goes in, and all sorts of stuff, which we will not go into today. As long as you kind of understand a commit is like I'm finishing my thought and I want to save it, then we're good. Okay, so if you're beginning with Git, my personal recommendation is that you put these commands on a note card or piece of paper next to your desk. Eventually you will do them so many times that you'll memorize them, but for right now, just kind of have them somewhere convenient. Now, here's the thing. No one can really see like anything we do right now because we're just kind of keeping track of our own changes on our own computer. This is our local repository, which means that it's a repository that exists only on our machine and no one but us can see it. How can we let the rest of the world know all about our code? If you're following along, I do want to call out something. I did git checkout and then the ID of a commit, which is fine. But what that does is it puts you in what's called a detached state. And that's real confusing, and we're not going to go into what that means. But what I want you to do, if you're going to continue following along, is do git checkout master, and that will set everything back to the way it's supposed to be. All right, so if I do git checkout master, then everything's back to normal. All right. Now, what do we do if we want to take our code and put it on the internet? All right. So I want to put it on the internet for everybody to see. GitHub.com is the website that we use to share our GitHub repos. So we create a repo locally with Git in it, okay, on our computer, but nobody else can see that. So GitHub.com is on the internet so that we can push our code up to the internet so that everybody else can see it. I commonly do this with my bootcamp students so that they can share their homework. So you can get a GitHub account for free and you can create a repository, a remote repository. Okay, so remember the remote in this case means on the internet. So local repository means on your computer. Remote repository means on the internet. I'm going to click this new button. And all you got to do is type a repository name. So we're going to do like example repository or name it whatever the heck you want as long as it's one word. Make sure it's public and we don't need to do anything else. Okay, public means that anyone on the internet can see it. Private means only you can see it. It cannot be shared with other people. So if we want to make our codes shareable to the wide internet, you're going to make the repo public. Remember, anyone on the internet can see your code. We're going to hit create repository at the bottom, and then we get a screen that looks like this. Now, We already have a repo, so we're going to go ahead and follow the bottom commands, all right? But they give you some commands to kind of help you with getting set up. So GitHub's kind of nice that way. So these are commands to help you. I do not expect anyone in the world to memorize this. So I fully expect you to like look at the commands and like refer back to them. All right, let's go back here and let's see if we can do the first one, get remote at origin. I'm just going to copy this first line, not all three. Well, common beginner mistake is to try to copy all three lines, paste them all in, and then run them. You don't want to do that. You want to do them one line at a time. All right, that'll make things a lot easier. So I'm going to tell my local GitHub repo, the one on my machine, that, hey, there's this repo on the internet that I want you to connect to. And that's what this does. Get remote at origin, and you'll notice that this is the actual URL of my repository on the internet. So like this is a website you could visit. Okay, I'm going to hit the enter, and I already added it, so it says remote origin already exists. When you clicked it, it should probably not say anything. All right, so what this means is now my local machine, this GitHub repo in C coding/git, it now knows that there is a remote repository on the internet that it should be able to talk back and forth between. Okay, that's what's very important to understand. All right, this next one, git branch -m main, we're going to do that next. So we're going to put that in here. All right, what that does is it changes the current branch to main. This whole master main thing, I don't want to get into it right now because it's really confusing. And then we're going to do the last one, git push -u origin main. Now notice how I did not memorize these. I am literally just reading off what it says and just doing them one by one. So that is a perfectly normal thing to do. All right, now when I come back to the website, I should see some code. But Jonathan, there's nothing here. Let's refresh. And here we are. You see I got all my files here, source main java, blah, 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 main.java, and it's got my code. All right. And again, you don't need to know Java at all. All you need to know is that I have my code now on the internet, and you, a person who I don't know on the internet, can see my code. I have pushed my local repository to my remote repository. So in layman's terms, I pushed code that was sitting on my computer and then made a copy of it on the internet. And this is one of the powerful things about Git. Hopefully this tutorial was understandable. There is a lot more to Git, but I wanted to basically go over the main idea of what Git is, how to do basic commits, so git add dot and git commit -m, and things like git init, and to actually take some code and push it up to the internet for everybody to see. Once you get this part down, once you understand that you are kind of creating a journal of code, then you can move into things like working with other devs on large-scale projects, or picking which commits you would like to have in your final piece of software, like cherry picking. There's a whole universe of stuff to do with Git, but hopefully after today you feel a little bit more comfortable with Git. The command line isn't so scary and you can do basic things. Okay, drop a like and subscribe to this channel if you like this content, and I always like to hear from my beginners if this was helpful. I like to do more beginner content to kind of help ease people into software development. That is my dream. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys next time.